Like to Paul, I'm out here chaperoning the worst field trip of all time because this is V'ger Please, a heinous trip at Warp 5. My name is Joseph.
I'm your hallucinating co-host, Peter.
Peter, did you know that we have a Patreon?
I didn't even know we were heinous.
But we do. We have a Patreon, something we rarely discuss because we're not like super duper shilly about it. But by the time this episode comes out, we'll have actually released our latest Patreon funded episode, a review of the 1995 not at all cinematic classic Tank Girl, something we chose to review as a consequence of essentially internal show meme magic.
Consequences is a good word to use to describe
I'm,
that fucking experience.
I'm just letting everyone know that if you want to spend $3 so that you can hear me and Peter sound miserable as fuck for an hour and a half, we've got the content for you. But we don't. We try to put something up every few months, specifically done because we have generous Patreon supporters. If that sounds interesting to you, please go download it. Some of other stuff, that we've done for Patreon, we've made public, and we will eventually for this. But if you want to listen to it now, you can pay for it. We also, any side discussions that Peter and I have that don't make the cut, we tend to put up there. So we appreciate anything you want to throw away, but also don't feel obliged. We just do it so that we can cover the bills, not so much that we're trying to make anything off it. So
Speaking of obligated and obliged,
uh-huh.
if you're new to us, if you didn't hear any of the Voyager stuff, you might not know that occasionally I drag everyone listening down a path that I don't know how many people care about, but I like talking about VR. So we're gonna talk VR here for a second. It's been a minute.
Excellent. Continue.
Some sad news for Trek and VR. Old Starfleet Bridge Simulator, the VR version that Ubisoft put out, which was a big fucking deal when it happened. I think they lost the rights and it's been pulled down. So if you did not have that Star Trek Bridge simulator installed, it's gone.
Oh my. That's a rarity that something that fast gets its rights pulled. Usually it takes years before you have a situation like that occurs. That game's only a couple years old.
Right. And, it's been a couple years since they actually updated. I want to say like 2020 or maybe even 2019 is the last time they pushed an update out. And that was on like Oculus, Steam. I think PlayStation VR had it.
Yeah.
That was
At any place you had mass market VR stuff.
And you played it pretty heavily. I think that was one of your big daily drivers there when you first got your Quest.
Yeah, it was probably my favorite thing to play. It definitely was. The game's a little bare bones. I'm not going to act like it isn't, but it's still a cool experience.
I started trying to play it, and then my screensaver kept turning on. It was fucking me up, and I laid off. I'll probably circle back around now that it's a complete fucking graveyard, and it'll be a miserable experience. But I'll tell you, just the intro to that game, when you start off, you're in this little shuttle pod flying towards the space station. Did they have this in the Oculus version too?
Yeah, they did.
And like the ships are docked, and I had the DLC, so like the Galaxy class, the Enterprise D is docked, and the fucking feeling of scale is unreal being in the shuttlecraft and looking at it, and it's worth the price of admission for that experience alone to slowly fly around this thing, which for all intents and purposes is to scale in this little world you're in, and it's fucking amazing.
It's those experiences that make VR so much fun. Is just that's why it didn't bother me that the game's kind of thin. Like the whole point of it is that you feel immersed in the environment. That's why you fucking play VR games. If I want a triple A best gameplay experience, I'm not going to do it on my Oculus. I'm going to do it on my battle station of a PC, with my cool graphics card and all of that. That's where I'm going to get that. That thing is so that I can feel immersed and have a very different experience. I'm not looking to have, cutting edge systems with 15 different, buttons I have to keep an eye on. And
which is Artemis, which I also enjoy, which
yes.
is the complete opposite. I mean, you can run that on any piece of shit laptop, and I think there's like 5 or 6 stations that run. It's like the super nerdy 80s wet dream of Star Trek. I fucking love it. And I guess the dude who made that is from right next to my hometown Because I'm from South Euclid, Ohio, and I guess he might be from like the Mayfield area. And they're doing like a big Artemis convention in July that I think I'm actually going to go to.
I was going to say I saw that advertised, and I
Oh, you
assumed
saw it?
it's. I assumed I saw it because you went like interested on Facebook or something. I think that's the only way it wound up on my feed is that you flagged it, but you have been a stan of Artemis as literally as long as I've known you, so
So
you should go.
I can only imagine the level of neck beard I will encounter when I go to that
Oh,
thing.
it's going to be real. You're going to find potential podcast listeners. I'm just saying that. Like it, you will find people who will buy what we're selling.
Well, that's the good end of things. There's certainly a dark side to those conventions, much the same way there can be a dark side to Strange New Worlds Season 1, Episode 4, the first away team mission in Starfleet history.
I said it in the tagline. This is the world's worst field trip. This is T'Pol being very, very over these edgy teenager humans nonsense for 45 minutes, being completely justified in everything she says from beginning to end. And it's actually kind of fun to watch in that particularly Colin Trenier as Trip, like just going super over the top with the crazy and just like just going for it, selling it 100%. That's cool, but the whole thing is just a grand justification of everything that T'Pol says from the beginning of the episode to the end.
I thought this was a dope episode.
Yeah,
Minus one big caveat. There's a lot of interesting stuff in this episode. The fact that they are so quick to involve minor characters before I, a Star Trek fan, have even memorized the main crew members' names yet. Right? It's interesting having little nobodies up front and center, especially little nobodies who don't end up dying, which really confuses me why we're using secondary characters instead of like just having mains all over the place in the spotlight.
it's funny you should bring that up because one of those nobodies, Crewman Cutler, was supposed to be a regular crew member. So
I got vibes. I got
yeah,
shades of Wildman off of her.
yeah, Cutler. So the two, I guess you call them red shirty characters in this are Nokovich and Cutler. And they're both crewmen, and they actually have like cool little enlisted insignia as well that are different than the officer stuff. So they finally like kind of figured that out a little bit more cleanly from the start. And Cutler was actually intended to be essentially a reoccurring character. But unfortunately, that did not occur because the actress died.
What?
Yes. So the actress, Kelly Waymeyer, unfortunately and unexpectedly passed away after the first season was done.
Do you know what happened to her?
I think it was just something very sudden. Let me look it up. Oh, she died of an undiagnosed cardiac arrhythmia. It just died in her home. She had no idea. So yeah, this was something that has been written about, or I think it was made. You know what? I think I picked that up in like DVD commentary when I watched this on DVD and then listened to the commentary track where they're like, yeah, we always expected to have Cutler back as a recurring character. And then
Why would this not be in Memory Alpha? And I mean, I guess you and I could just as easily make Memory Alpha accounts and edit this stuff in there, but just Memory Alpha, especially from the get-go on this, just feels like it's nothing but like Starlog fluff. I feel like the behind the scenes stuff is real minimal, and it's a lot of quotes and self gratification coming out of the executive producers for like Starlog and Star Trek Official Magazine articles. This guy came out, first aired October 10th, 2001. Teleplay by Mike Sussman and Phyllis Strong. Those were two Voyager writers that were pretty big there towards the end of Voyager, and they got brought on, I think, as like the main writers for Enterprise. But the story here, Rick Berman and Bran Braga, and I think overall, credit where credit's due, they put together a pretty solid story. Like we said before, it's going to be the first real away team story, and even though it's planet side, coincidentally, I'm going to go and chalk this up as space madness.
It's a little bit of both, right? It's nice that the very first time that Enterprise decides to go farting around in a part of the galaxy they've never been before, that they are immediately confronted with space madness. It's just born into Starfleet's DNA from the very beginning.
I also want to self-acknowledge my own hypocrisy in that I'm pretty deep into the episode before it dawns on me, like, I'm totally not giving these guys shit for going down to this planet and then just popping out wearing fucking pajamas and no suit. Yet I mercilessly harped on that in Prometheus, that, you know, people would dare take their fucking helmets off and not be in these EV suits. Times you get rid of that dark lens filter on a TV show and let the sun come through, and you're able to forgive so many other.
Yeah, you get that gritty realism filter off, and then suddenly it's not so stupid that they're just hanging out with their ball caps on, enjoying this beautiful LA park that they decided to shoot this in.
Boy.
So the run up, the teaser is pretty straightforward. It's Cutler in the mess hall. She's trying some kind of Vulcan soup, and Nogovich comes by and is like, "Why are you eating that nerdy Vulcan soup?"
Because it's Star Trek under Berman era, and we got a real soup fetish in the writers' room that hasn't been able to rear its head since mid-season Voyager. So soup it's gonna be.
I think soup actually did appear in Endgame, did it not?
It did, but not. It was not the tour de force that I was expecting. I also thought it was interesting to see Book, and that's them not understanding the future. That's not an understanding that iPads were not for the 24th century after all. That's a 2012 thing.
It's interesting to think of that in context, right? Because probably the reason they chose to have physical books and to use physical books is, you know, iPad technology was definitely in the future of this production date. This was made in 2000 and then broadcast in 2001. And they definitely wanted to more analog the show, right? The whole concept here was, even in 23rd century Starfleet in the original series, they were, you know, essentially little digital data pads. So they want to analog it more. So there's a lot of switches on things, right? There's a lot of dials, physical dials on things, and there's books. And I like that. But as you just said, now it seems way more anachronistic, right? Like the idea that there would be a book in 2021 seems a little wild.
But you know what? I like the way you frame that, and that's, how do you make something look lower tech than original series without it just looking stupid? And it looked low tech in original series because of budget limitations that certainly Berman era tech isn't subjected to. So Book is a reasonable thing to put in their hands, so you didn't have to have some crude spray painted cereal box as your reading device. And also, I'm sure it doesn't hurt that books are not expensive special effects that require nothing in post. And this is a pretty budget conscious episode. Like, in the end, you got some ship stuff, but it's a shuttle landing, people in a single set dramatic environment.
The Hell Caves.
Well, we'll get to those. Don't worry. So the other guy, what's his name, Nokovich or something, starts giving her some shit about eating the soup, getting a little racist, more that low key Vulcan racism that we're being spoon fed here. And hey, what's that beautiful thing outside the window? I wasn't expecting to see Earth 2,
which was a very underrated television show, FYI. And like Earth 2, a bunch of weird shit's happening on it, and we'll get to that. So they roll up in the club to this neat looking, as we will find out, Minishara class planet, Class M, Minishara.
I loved it.
There it is.
I loved it.
Yeah. And it's not on any maps. It's not something anyone's seen. So everyone's very excited of like, "Ooh, cool. What's this? We found some shit out here. This is awesome. We found a habitable looking planet here with nice nitrogen, oxygen atmosphere. Who would have thought?" And then what we begin with is T'Pol saying, "Okay, children, this is how you actually do planetary surveys. You send probes, you test the atmosphere, you make sure it's safe, you do geological surveys from space, you do a lot of science for the next week before you go down there and check it out in person because it could be dangerous." And of course, immediately, Captain Archer's like, "Fuck that. Get in the shuttle pod. We going, bitch, right now."
How many crewmen are on Enterprise?
86.
That's a small crew.
It is.
That's very feasible to know everybody's first and last name. It's interesting that they just kind of stumble across this planet and it catches everybody off guard. Like, this isn't where we were supposed to be. I think they're supposed to go to Nebula.
Mm-hmm.
So, reading into the expanded universe here a little bit, like, decisions being made on the bridge that go so wildly off course of whatever the current mission parameters are supposed to be. Really strange to think about in a ship this size, especially in a mission. Again, and this is what I keep coming back to. Like, I think if there's a time for rigorous military doctrine, chain of command, cohesion, and all that other stuff, like, Enterprise is the place for it, because there's so many things that could go wrong. They're so alone. This is humanity's ego, right? And that even gets brought up here. Like, if Enterprise goes down missing or whatever, that's going to be a big black eye. So this ties into the second thing I want to talk about, and it's just Archer feels like such a flimsy character in so many ways to me. And I'm getting shades of, like, almost Janeway, in that here's what we want to do with an episode, and someone needs to be a fucking idiot to make these things happen, and that's going to be Jonathan Archer.
You nailed it. And this is why I always disliked his character so much, and why I think Enterprise was so badly held back as a show overall, is that its main character was just Janeway, but worse in its decision-making skills. There is no reason provided that is rational to why Jonathan Archer decides that T'Pol's advice sucks. There isn't, like, any sort of exigent circumstance or reasoning that is provided aside from we're impatient and we've decided to go anyway. It's literal irresponsibility on the part of the captain of this vessel to say, let's just go down there and party on, Wayne. What's the worst that could happen?
And what's making this pill so big that they want me to swallow is that there's continuity. This is not Voyager. These are not ship in a bottle episodes.
Correct.
Okay, they know what happened yesterday. They know what happened last week. And last week was let me fucking claw my way past these god-awful tank words. Fight or flight. So that's when they decided to fuck around by the derelict ship where vampires were draining people. And before that was the crazy onset of the temporal war and, like, the what they call the Sulak super soldiers or whatever.
Solubians, yeah.
Archer has been wrong a lot, and things have been very dangerous, and each time he kind of comes to this realization at the end, which is, well, maybe we're kind of right about that. Okay, well, that's a cool story. And then the next story is, well, maybe I should have listened to you after all. And here it is, third time in a row. The fourth time this fucking happens, this next episode, whatever it's going to be, if I'm being subjected to Archer being a fucking idiot and disregarding all caution and any sort of advice from the seasoned, I've been to 36 planets already, sub-commander with him, fool me once, shame on you, fool me 7 times, we need a new captain.
There's a big difference between a character that is new and is making mistakes out of ignorance, which I totally understand that that's what they wanted to do, which was, this is literally the first time any human's done this, so they're gonna fuck it up a bit along the way and they're gonna learn from it. And wanton irresponsibility. There was no onerous request being made on the part of T'Pol when it comes to how to proceed with checking this place out. And it was just disregarded, like you said, to make the plot work, with zero real reflection on the part of anyone at the end of it, aside from, I guess, Trip a little bit, about how correct T'Pol was the entire time. But that said, it does facilitate a fun episode, so I'm not really mad at it.
Sure.
Like, everything that happens after this is pretty dope, but the way we get here is dumb, and it's it's one of a billion examples you're gonna end up having by the end of the show of like, God, fucking Archer sucks so bad.
And not to script tweak on the front end, but like you could have had all of the same good stuff that's going to happen this episode and just tweak a little bit on the front end. Hey, there's a reason we need to be down there. There's a reason that, you know, we need to get in before the storm hits to recover whatever this thing was. And we're just not fast enough. And that's what strands people down there and shit goes sideways from there. Instead of this entire bad thing's happening because the captain's a fucking idiot and we're all stupid and not learning any sorts of lessons whatsoever as
Yeah,
we.
why not just have it so that they found this planet no one's ever seen before because they got like a faint distress signal from an Earth freighter. And they're like, what's an Earth freighter doing out this far? And they find it, and it's like some old derelict that like crashed there,
Yeah.
or like
Wow.
something like that.
Real Mass Effecty. I like that. A plus.
Thanks. They could have, also then teased the bad stuff through that, and they could have fed that into the plot, and yeah, it wouldn't have taken much to justify their actions rather than just being fucking idiot 15-year-olds.
I really like that idea, and that even plays in well with the what's his name?
Mayweather.
Mayweather, the story he tells. Like this guy, I hate that spacefaring families are called boomers.
It is a little hard to parse now.
And it's not even like, God, who could know boomer would come to mean what it is? Like, baby boomer was a fucking. These are baby boomers making these shows back then, by the way. Like, what? But, anyways, like, him being. He could have been like, wow, I heard about this freighter. You know, we've been looking for that for 15 years. Like, we got to go check it out.
Exactly. Instead, it's like, all right, get in the car, loser. We're going. And we find that, of course, our two red shirty folks, Cutler and Nokovich, are part of the team. Cutler apparently is an entomologist. She is, in fact, a bug scientist, which, and is desperate for T'Pol to be the senpai that notices her by trying like her cuisine and doing small talk. And T'Pol's not having it.
You know what? I said I got Wildman vibes off of her. I was thinking the mom Wildman, but if T'Pol's just 7 of 9, this would be the baby Wildman trying to like emulate her. Look at that.
Hey,
They're
go.
just stealing everything from Voyager.
I like Cutler a lot. Cutler is that I am just happy to be out here in space doing cool space shit. And it's like the opposite of Hoshi in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Where Hoshi's like, I'm out here not because I enjoy space, but because I'm just very focused on this one thing and I'm really good at it. And I got guilted by my friend into being here. And whereas Cutler is like, I'm going to see alien bugs. I'm going to find, this is going to be awesome. Like I told Stevie in advance, like Cutler's going to be your favorite character because Cutler is basically the enthusiasm my wife would show in this circumstance. Like it is her, but in space, as far as like, yes, I want to do all the space things. I want to find all the space animals and cuddle with them.
Not just sluggos. I continue to be attracted to these little shuttle pods that like top load and get dropped down in this real archaic Dark Ages shuttle bay that they're working out of here.
Yeah, this like with kind of unsafe OSHA, not compliant like scaffolding all around it. It's not this giant Olympic pool-sized goddamn shuttle bay that they can just kind of freely walk around in.
Tell me at some point a bad guy gets kicked on the shuttle bay doors and they open it and like blast him into space like aliens.
I can't say. Not off the top of my head. I hope that happens. That should happen.
It better happen.
It better happen. Yeah. I can't remember, but it could happen.
Why put shuttle bay doors pointing down on the ship if you're not going to suck someone out into space after kicking them?
Yell, this is Starfleet.
Yeah.
Give them the
this
boot.
Is Spartamo. Boom. There you go. Flush them out. So they drop down the aforementioned stupid ball caps. I hate those. I know you feel like it.
I do.
I get you can't put them in fucking like combat helmets because that might be too much, and because it's a happy sunny planet, not a gritty filter off of a Ridley Scott movie, I'm not expecting it to be space helmets, but I'd rather just have hair than fucking ball caps.
I love that Archer brings Porthos.
What a motherfucker.
What a dog. He brings his dog down to the alien planet. Like, you just see him like run out and pee on a tree immediately.
I mean,
It's great.
you would think that this is just a high school drama club and not a bunch of space scientists with any fucking lick of common sense.
Yeah, like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Why did you bring your dog?
Speaking of aliens, I saw that dog run out and go off, and I'm like, just a little bit of sinister music in the background here, and you know a face hugger would be on that dog, and that dog would be chest bursting as it births the alien infestation back up on
Or if it just
Enterprise.
pees on a tree and that's when all the loincloth people come out and be like, the dog must perish.
Yeah, from Justice, those fucking
You know, like, good God. What part of your day is like, we just found a strange new alien world that isn't charted? I'm going to grab my beagle. I'll be right there.
I mean, the things you're exposing this dog to, yeah, there's no humanoids. Ticks, chiggers, all that other shit that lives out in like Earth's forests that it's gross and awful to find on your dog. Who knows what this thing's. I don't even want to think what happened to the dog on this trip. But as you mentioned, they've actually, in fact, landed in a Southern California state park. And it is beautiful and wonderful and perfect.
They they start out by doing a quick picture of the away team, outside with a little digital camera. And then, they go around, they're doing science stuff. They're doing scans. There's like two moons. It's a picture perfect day. There's lots of wildflowers. It's all very nice. And, the day wraps up and the captain's like, all right, well, we're going to head back. And DePaul's like, no, I want to stay overnight with my science team, do more science. Got plenty of camping gear in this thing. And then Tucker and Mayweather were like, we want to stay too. Not because we're going to do any kind of work, but because fuck it, this is rad. Which is like, this is the first example of Tucker doing Space Florida Man shit that we're going to get. And there's going to be a lot more examples as time goes on of this, of like Tucker decides he just wants to do something and then hijinks ensue.
That camping gear, by the way, looks like it was all bought at a dollar store.
Yeah. The 22nd century camping gear is worse than the Coleman 10 I can buy at Target. Like, come on, guys.
It looks like it's designed to be shredded at first contact with wind. This is their first foray into space, but this isn't humanity's first time sending out a military expedition or people going to like a semi-dangerous new area. Like, send down the other shuttlecraft and have it just chill out, just in case something bad happens. And these are excuses. Who would have thought things could go this sideways, right? Who could have ever expected this? With there being continuity in place for these episodes, like, I'm willing to say, well, you get the first one free, and the next time you do a stupid thing, that's on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
No forgiveness this time. You can feed me, I didn't want it, but you can feed me the B'Elanna hates being a Klingon story 8 times because every episode was meant to be digested in a void. And the first time you pick up the show, it should all be accessible, this and that. That's not what's happening here. The next time they have a fucking away team and they leave the away team stranded and they don't give them the extra shuttle, and it's just the away team in a little house on the prairie minus a monkey, which is Voyager references, but I'm gonna be pissed to see it. It's not gonna be acceptable.
Fortunately, they do tend to have good continuity between these little lessons that get taught to them. I don't necessarily remember if this one gets referenced or when it does, if it does, but we'll see. We'll see how bad it gets. But we do have a scene where Travis is doing a ghost story from his time as working on his dad's civilian ship. It's a classic campfire ghost story situation, strange thing found out in space and gets opened, and it's some kind of space terror thing happens, and a guy goes crazy. It's a classic scene to do in these kinds of circumstances, and it's a little like weird to see it in Star Trek, but it's a good Star Trek based version of that story, so it fits.
It was a good story. It just, the scene went too long. And I don't, again, it seemed like this was a very budget conscious episode. You're not using anything really exotic as far as location goes, and it's just a lot of small scenes, small cast drama. I keep going back to your script doctoring. If they were down to investigate a ghost freighter or something, this would have played in much more relevant, I think. And the ghosty element, if they started seeing, crew members, there's a much better episode that could have been had um, with those abandoned freighter tweaks. And again, it seems like that was the obvious direction they should have went with this, not just Archer's a fucking dummy.
Yeah, there's a whole bit there they could have leaned into and then kept the whole premise of the episode, including the hallucinogens from the pollen part of it,
Mm-hmm.
as the payoff, and they just instead had no backing for it aside from let's just have Colin Chenier just go crazy. Like,
The payoff to that ghost scene is that the entire premise of the ghost story is debunked by T'Pol, who's like, no way an escape pod can broadcast an emergency signal for 60 years. That's ridiculous. And like everybody around the fire is just kind of like, well, yeah, but that's not the point of the story. We're just
that's not the
this
point.
isn't real. We're just bullshitting. Chill out, lady.
It's like, this is why no one likes Vulcans. Like, you're just such party poopers, man. Can't even
Uh,
enjoy a fucking scary story.
and to Trip's credit, and the actor who plays Trip, like his little line after that's like, well, they don't have ghosts. I'm guessing they don't have ghost stories on Vulcan. Like, I don't know if it's the dialogue that's working. I don't know if it's the delivery that's working. I'm feeling certain characters coming through strong, even in these early episodes. So there's something that's just working.
Yeah, Trip. I mean, College Engineer has a good grasp of who Trip should be from the start. He's a go boy engineer. He's very practical. He's very down to earth, and he's Florida man. Like, he figured that out from the jump, and he never needed any help getting that figured out. And that character remains strong throughout the entire show. So I completely agree. And what also happens is, yeah, so the next piece that happens in the episode is the wind picks up. They get into their dollar store tents.
Well, before that, and now that I'm thinking about it, Novacek starts complaining about a headache. There was an explicit scene during the survey where he picks up a flower and sniffs it, which I guess lends credence that the hallucinogen is coming out of those flowers. For him to get such a heavy onset right up front, it's got to be the flower. So he goes, hey, I got a bad headache. Let me go lay down. The rest of the people around the fire are like, oh, hey, look at that. These lightning bugs just all disappeared. I wonder what that means.
Like you said, Novak Djokovic or whatever. I mean, that's the tennis player. Ethan Novakovic. God, this is the
Let's
kind
just
of
go Novacek.
Novacek.
Not gonna matter because I don't think we're gonna see this guy again.
He lays down. The wind picks up. Everyone goes back to their tents. As the storm is going on, either real or imagined, Tucker and Travis confront a giant scorpion in their tents. Trip wants to shoot it in pure Florida man style. Give me a gun. I'm going to shoot the scorpion.
I don't blame him if I saw that fucking thing in my sleeping bag. Memory Alpha points out a pretty good note that it very much resembles the conspiracy chest burster bugs.
Oh, it does. Yeah, it's got that. It's like a weird, nasty looking space bug. It is definitely not friendly.
Shoot it. Kill it with fire, in fact.
But this event causes Paul to suggest that they should go into a nearby tunnel network to take shelter because their camping gear sucks and it's filled with scorpions. And when they cut back, that is precisely where they are. And we're getting a little bit of information up at the ship where Archer's like, "Hey, how are our friends doing down there?" And Reed's like, "Well, we didn't check the weather before we sent down, so now they're in the middle of a fucking hurricane. So big oops on my part."
Yeah, maybe we should have left him a ride home after all. So the caves. These don't look like the Planet Hell caves.
Really?
Do you think they do?
They weren't very well lit, so I assumed they were just the Planet Hell caves, little extra bits here and there.
I mean, usually those Planet Hell caves stick out like a sore thumb. Like there's very definable like ledge formations and stuff. These look, I don't know, maybe they just redressed the entire set. Like, could have still been the same sound stage, but um, we'll have to see the next time some caves show up if it's our old friends. As you just pointed out, the most notable feature of these caves is how dark it is. These are all going to be flashlight scenes here forward, and the hallucinations are going to set on pretty quickly here. In terms of seeing people just around a corner, stepping into shadows, casually panning the flashlight around, seeing something when you go back to it, it's gone. Pretty creepy effect. And I think they do a good job building the lunatic atmosphere that the majority of this episode is going to dwell in with those camera tricks.
They definitely don't try and like trick you too hard that it's not them being crazy. They lay a path that this is all in their heads pretty pretty quick, and about halfway through the second act, there's no doubt that this is in their heads, right? Because I knew that was going to be the plot, that they were all being affected by a hallucinogen. It maybe I was trying to get a feel for it while I was watching it, of like, how hard were they trying to sell that this is actually a space mystery, and how obvious is it that it's not? I got the impression they weren't really trying to trick the audience into thinking that this was a real plot and that it was actually space madness.
Right.
And when that got revealed, it seemed pretty natural that was the answer. Was that the case for you?
Yeah, I'm just saying that the eerie effect of I thought I saw someone and they're gone, and people that look like
Sure,
they
yeah,
might
it
have
was
been,
well done. Yeah. I
like
agree.
Blair Witch 2, which I really enjoyed. That kind of, I thought I saw something. There's nothing really there. The critical thing that's missing here is any sort of self awareness. There never at any point do these guys go, am I go? Well, first of all, it's interesting that these are shared hallucinations. Or are they? Because Trip is talking about rock monsters. Cutler is seeing
Actual
clear
people.
humanoids.
Yeah.
Novacek, I think he sees the other crew members. So I guess they're all kind of a little different. And by the time they start what I would call the shared hallucination, where they're buying each other's shit, like they're all so sick and sweaty and fever ridden that who knows what they're talking about. So it makes sense as to that. But they do a nice job making it scary. The lack of self-awareness of, am I going crazy? What do you mean you didn't see that? And the biggest offender becoming to Paul, who at no point is able to diagnose these hairless apes are seeing things. And I know they say she's a little infected by this thing too, that puts her a little on edge. How do I describe it? Oh yeah, T'Pol delivers every line like the evil doctor in a psych asylum who knows that you're not crazy and is just like, you're very sick, Mr. Joe. You need help. No, you are not a podcaster. That's a fantasy. Like everything's like so condescending and like fuck you ish that the whole thing just feels like she's instigating.
I think that was on purpose, right? Like they structured her dialogue that way so that it would feed the paranoia of the other crew members. And the whole point is that's kind of where she fails a little bit, is that she comes around at the end, right? Like where she realizes,
I guess it does sound like I've just been fucking with these guys the whole time. Maybe
yeah, I need to like back up a little bit, and ease up on these hairless apes a little bit. They're sensitive folk.
Now
Like
that I think about it, I am sounding a little evil, I guess.
yeah, that seemed to be what their intention was to me, was she was kind of overloading on the hyper scientific way of speaking, and at the end she kind of softens a little bit, to these hairless apes, like, okay, I'm going to change my approach a little bit. But all of the crazy is carried on the back of Trip, right? Like he's the one that's just absolutely going bananas, and is melting down mentally in front of everybody and is having to sell how wild-eyed crazy he is the entire time. And it's a build-up from like, I saw something here, I went out, I'm not trusting you, now I'm seeing things, now I've got a fucking science teacher from my 10th grade talking to me, and now I've got my delusions being like fed to me by the captain. Like there's a whole story arc of his crazy in this episode. He fucking nails it the whole way.
It's good writing. It's good acting. The support cast behind him, Mayweather, Cutler, are pretty zonked out from whatever is making him sick. Like I could have gone for a little bit more something out of Mayweather. I mean, for being main bridge crew, I thought that he's like a little too checked out.
Get used to that.
Well, if that's systemic of the show as a whole, but I thought them playing, to Paul playing off of Trip worked well. So Novacek is an interesting B plot. He has run off. He is sure that there's something in the caves. He does not want to be in the caves. He runs off. They try to hunt him down. T'Pol goes deeper in the cave to see if there's anything actually in there. I like when they open up the gun case. Like, think of that. You bring down guns for the away team mission, but they're locked in suitcases. And then there's what? Is there 6 of them, I think? But there's only 4 guns.
There was only 4 guns because there's only supposed to be 4 of them staying, I believe.
Fair. They go off. They can't find them. They almost fall down the Grand Canyon that nobody saw there. I don't know how that works.
Just like the weather, right? Like no one saw this giant hurricane bearing down on that area.
Well, the Doppler radar system wasn't that good on those old NX classes. He cannot be found. And finally, things start escalating. There's a couple chats back and forth, and like, you know what? Fuck this weather. We need to get these guys. We're going to fly down the shuttlecraft, try and pick them up. We're able to read the life signs. Novacek ain't doing so hot. To get down there, I really like the scene where Archer's like, hey, Novacek, we're here to get you. Fuck you! Sir, fuck you! I'm looking around the shuttlecraft like, what did he just say?
I'm your boss, right? You're going to be cleaning toilets for the next 6 months.
Well, it's gonna punishment's gonna be a little bit more severe than that. I'm gonna put you through that fucking the luggage mover.
Yeah. So there's a failed attempt at landing a shuttlecraft to bail everybody out after folks start to get suspicious of T'Pol because like Cutler sees her talking with people, but they're not really there, and so like she's like, "What the fuck are you talking about? I didn't talk to anybody." But all that gets shortcut because they're going to get picked up, and then the pickup fails.
But again, like for T'Pol to completely miss it, like, well, she says she heard you talking to people. She's got no reason to lie. You say you weren't talking to people. You've got no reason to lie. And like T'Pol not to be like, yeah, well, maybe she's crazy. Maybe she's seeing things. Maybe we're all a little whacked out of our minds down here. The shuttle pickup fails. Novacek ain't doing so hot. They go, if we don't pick this guy up, he's going to die. Let's use that newfangled transporter.
It worked the one time we used it, so why not give it another go?
Well, here's why.
I love that this is what happens. That they're like, okay, just pick him up, just go down there, press the levers, and get his ass up here.
Soul or no soul, you're coming with us.
And then, Malcolm is like, okay, I think I got him. Wait a second. This can't differentiate from the debris around him. Oh, fuck it. They just push the gas, bring him up.
Thought they were going to like beam him in inside out or a puddle of goo, and we were going to get like our first transporter death. What we got was so much better. All the fucking leaves and sticks that were blown around and what looked like rocks. This dude like transports him with like branches and shit like stuck in his face, leaves sticking out of his nose, sticks, big rocks by his cheekbones. I love a good industrial accident, and this was an A+. This is one of the best transporter accidents I think I've seen.
Because it wasn't like too dramatic. It was logical, right? The whole point that they're putting out there is this is very primitive transporter technology, and because it's primitive, it's picking up all the stuff that's around him that's swirling around, and when it rematerializes, it's rematerializing kind of like on his face and in his
In
skin.
his face.
Yeah, like that is like the perfect transporter accident because it's like pretty reasonably limited to something you could kind of see happening in this set of circumstances, and wasn't fatal also, like it was just painful and was able to be reversed.
Yeah, how lucky for him that that rock is in his cheekbone and not in his brain. Or maybe like that's why I don't see him on, because I think this is the only time we see Novacek, and maybe it's like, yeah, you know, he lived, but he's got leaves in his left hemisphere, and he cannot really.
He's got leaf brain.
It's
He's not
bad.
useful
It's
anymore.
bad.
What every 15 minutes he just drops whatever he's doing and then yells at a loud volume into a bulkhead and then continues on with whatever he was
Yeah.
doing.
He's going home. He's going home. The
He's just
dangers of space.
he's going to be part of our new special Starfleet. Like,
Mhm.
yeah. Fortunately for Novak Djokovic, you know, he's got the handy Dr. Phlox around, and Phlox, you know, he's got a little treatment for everything. He's closing up little wounds, and he's like, you know, I'm treating him, taking care of him, and then, you know, Archer was like, "Can I talk to him?" And he said, "Yeah, you could, but you don't want to because he's high as shit. he's on LSD right now." And he's like, "What do you mean?" It's like, yeah, he's his blood's coursing with hallucinogens.
I looked under the microscope and I actually saw the script. You're not going to believe what the plot of this episode is. It's space madness, even though they're on the planet. Everybody is tripping balls and it's going to be a bad time. But don't worry, after about 2 or 3 hours in the clean ship air, everything should be just fine. Wink.
I do like how casually he puts it. Of like, yeah, you could talk to him, but he's high as shit right now. Yeah, everyone's high down there right now. Very high. You should bring them home. Like, no urgency in his voice, really. Just very matter of fact, like, this is what's going on.
So, majority of the episode from here out is going to be things in the cave quickly devolving. Trip is not willing to chill out. High drama as the other crew members get more and more fatigued, falling asleep, and you know, you guessed it, it's going to end with Trip and T'Pol pulling guns on each other.
And also, a ticking clock element is inserted when we find out that this hallucinogen that they're on is going to poison them if they are not treated in advance. And so, not only do we have their tripping balls, but now they have to take their medicine, or else their lives could be in danger.
Yeah, what was that in WoW? Is that called like a secondary proc?
Yes, it was a secondary proc. Like it's a bleed effect that hits after
Yeah,
after a certain amount of time.
that you thought it was a debuff hallucinogen, but really it's a necromancy poison effect. Archer gets called back down to sick bay, and Novacek is looking like he's gonna die. There was some, and I like that, you know, they've got these sensors. They're not like super technology of the 24th century that show you everything you need to know up front. You can find this stuff if you're looking for this stuff.
And I really liked that Phlox screwed up. It wasn't something he was looking for, so he didn't know, and he's apologetic over it. Like, you don't see that all that often in Star Trek, where like a major cast member like screws up by not thinking of doing something. And even though Phlox is one of the more veteran and knowledgeable people on the ship, being, you know, a doctor who's seen it's worked in other species and has been around a little bit, he's still fallible, much like the rest of the crew, and cops to his mistake and apologizes for it. It's a neat tone setter.
This is the first time you don't see a jovial Phlox too. It's, and especially too, like compared to the EMH, which we're coming off of. The EMH never said I'm sorry. The EMH was always knew what to look for, and B, never really had to say I'm sorry because I fucked up. So this is a really good human moment for him. The acting's great. You feel it. And they do a good job of selling this as much more severe than what it needs to be. Because according to Memory Alpha, originally the script calls for Novacek to die from this. And everything you
Yes.
see is basically saying Novacek is going to die for this. I'm sorry I fucked up. This guy is going to die. It's my fault. That really lights the fire under Archer's ass. We got to fix this. We got to synthesize a serum. We need to go. And apparently, what had actually happened was the script called for the death, and it was Scott Bakula that was like. And when I read it, I was at first it's like, why the fuck would Scott Bakula get any creative input on them deciding, no, let's not kill this guy after all. Like it's not fair. I'm like, that's shut the fuck up. What are you talking about? But the rationale, reading deeper in, was good, and it's that this would represent the first Starfleet death, that this should carry huge emotional impact, and if the show wasn't going to be willing to like really put the time in to feel that loss, and that the real shadow of consequence being cast over him, then it's better to have him survive than throw a cheap red shirt death from original series in.
I get the what I think Bakula was saying, which is let's wait on this, right? Like there's gonna be plenty of opportunity to like have deaths happen and to meditate on the deaths.
And
Let's
let's do
like,
it the right way.
yeah, let's hold up and find the right spot. Which this goes back to something we said when we talked about the pilot, which is these were actors who were much better prepared to do this show than most Trek actors that found themselves do it, because by now you've got 15 years of a track record of broadcast Trek in the Berman era, right? Like it's a known quantity what being on Star Trek means, particularly for someone like Scott Bakula, who's literally done major science fiction television
Well,
before.
look at the politics too. I mean, Voyager was, for all intents and purposes, a bunch of nobodies, right? Was there anybody that was really?
Kate Mulgrew was known because she was on Ryan's Hope. That
Yeah,
was
but
it.
listen, man, that's
That's it.
daytime TV. That's not fucking Quantum Leap.
Yeah.
That wasn't a big ask. Patrick Stewart,
Nope.
I don't.
Total nobody. Total
I mean,
nobody.
he had to be in Dune prior to that, right?
He was in Dune, but like
He might have been a big deal overseas.
he was a minor character that died real fast in Dune.
Your biggest, I think, get in Next Gen was LeVar Burton reading Rainbow yet, or is that after?
He was doing it at the same time.
So, from a Trek standpoint, Scott Bakula is the biggest dick out of the gate I think they've ever gotten. And in Voyager, the absolute dread and horror at the idea of a cast member suggesting a script edit requiring a phone call to the writer's room and a 2-hour delay while people pondered over it. And here you got Scott Bakula saying, no, this is stupid. This isn't good. And even though the script, which is finished and we've all agreed to, and we're filming this stuff now, like, you should rewrite it because this is dumb. I might not like how Archer's coming off, but I can certainly appreciate the vigilance of this guy on the set to tell the writers, or tell the writers are the executive team. It's Bran Branagh and fucking Rick Berman, and being like, this is stupid. Your idea was bad, and there's a better way to do this. And that has been the fatal flaw in a lot of this Trek stuff out of Berman, Voyager, and Ford, where there's just, you surround yourself with yes men who praise your great ideas and then praise your bad ideas, and then everybody sits around scratching their head wondering where all the fucking viewers went.
And you're probably right that Bakula is maybe the only person who could have pulled that stunt and say, like, you need to reassess this because he's such a known actor that was on like a major network television show. He's got enough like buy-in and respect from the people around him because he's got a career on his hands. Yeah, good point. The situation on the surface continues to degenerate as Trip's grasp of reality collapses, and it comes down to kayfabe. What the captain does to resolve the situation is, rather than try and convince Trip to that he's hallucinating and he should take his medicine, to concoct a fictional circumstance that matches his delusions so that he will lower his gun long enough for T'Pol to fucking shoot him.
Cold-blooded.
To which the captain says, all right, let's all hope T'Pol remembers which side is stunned. Like, let's hope she's not too crazy. I guess that's what we're betting on. Let's do it. And so Paul does not hesitate for one solitary second, but does in fact stun Trip stone cold down. And then actually, I think Vulcan neck pinches Travis. I think, and
Pops his ass right on the neck.
and yeah, and gives them all their medicine and gives herself the medicine, and they all come to in the morning as the winds have passed, and they're like, oh, I remember. Oh no, that wasn't a dream, was it? We were actually crazy. Fucking Trip's like, did you shoot me? She's like, yes, I did. I shot you and you deserved it. Like,
to be fair, like, you shot the cave up. Oh, I will tip my hat to the special effect of the phaser shots hitting the rocks. Like, those explosions are pretty cool. I don't know if you really paid attention to that, but that's some pretty good phaser fire there. I also like during the scheming of how to get Trip incapacitated, it's what's her name, Hoshi?
Yes.
Speaking in Vulcan to T'Pol and trying to like relay the secret messages. And why are you guys talking in code? Oh, well, you know, she's sick too, and she forgot how to speak English. I also liked the story about the training mission where Trip got nitrogen poisoning or whatever, and wanted to pull his helmet off, and was able to suspend his disbelief in reality long enough by just listening to the orders of Archer, and it like kind of shows he's this good soldier, which in this situation results in him getting shot, but you know, these things happen.
No, it all comes together well. It's very much carried by performance and specific by Trip. But actually, like, you know, like T'Pol is very, like you said, she kind of like walks into the problem accidentally by being a little too matter of fact and not at all kind of understanding what's going on, and then ends the episode a little bit more understanding. And then you got Cutler, who's, you know, just happened to be here and then kind of gets drawn up in all of it. And then you got all of the elements work pretty well. They just need a better frame story that didn't made Archer not to be out to be such a fucking child. It's for putting him in the situation to begin with. Just dumb. You know.
I also want to recognize that they're able to more realistically build tense moments with high stakes. Your people are trapped. You need to get to them. There's this time limit that if you don't get them in time, they're going to die. And you don't just have the magic of the transporter to fix all your problems. And in Voyager and Next Gen, they would fix that problem by saying, oh, there's ions in the atmosphere and it's making transporter difficult. Like, I don't know why throwaway dialogue like that does not resonate as well as, because it's the same thing, right? We have a transporter. We cannot use the transporter. And I think it's because sometimes the transporters are like super fucking awesome. And then sometimes, we need that plot thing. Just, they don't work today versus
this is a more naturalistic example of something that's an unreliable piece of technology. Like, you don't want to use it. There's risk involved. They've established the risk. Like, so in the future, when they're using shuttle pods and they don't want to use the transporter, you as the viewer are like, oh, I know why. That guy came up and he had fucking rocks in his head. He has leaf brain. Like, that's why. Like, this is a rational fear they have because this shit is not precise.
Our primary mode of transportation is the shuttlecraft, and the shuttlecraft is unavailable because of weather conditions. And the idea of like bungee jumping out of the back of the ship and then trying to snatch someone up and rip them back up into space and not pull their arms and legs off in the process, which is basically what the transport is, right? Like, just this, it's there for cargo. It's not there for people. I like it. And I felt that danger a lot more than I have in anything people stuck on the surface plot wise in a long time. So yeah, really good episode. and it's a simple episode. There's no aliens that we really see. It's just a strong inner character, dramatic space madness episode.
What are we watching next week, Peter?
Going in next, we're gonna do season 1, episode 5, Unexpected. I'm seeing one of these. Gosh, what are they called? The Solar, so the Solaks, Sulak,
Salubian.
Salubians. Do you remember what these guys look like to me? I don't know. There's some lady talking. I think that's a Salubian. It looks like that race that was the co-pilot from the last Starfighter.
God, I haven't seen that movie in forever. I don't remember what they look
Vaguely Trandoshan. How about that?
like. Okay.
When Trip is dispatched to assist a Cerulean ship with its power source problems, he's delighted to have a friendly encounter with one of the ship's female engineers. However, shortly after returning to Enterprise, his genitals start to itch. Yeah, he discovers that the seemingly innocuous interaction has led to a surprising result. I don't know. Maybe his dick does start to burn when he pees.
Listen, Trip is Florida man in space, so we got to have an episode that is, shall we say, notorious for what its premise is. I think it's hilarious, but you will have to help me judge this.
Real quick,
better.
before we pop out here on this episode, I do want to point out that the one we did watch was Dave Livingston, who is a very well-established Voyager name for us. Is there anything that really stands out to you as a Livingston style?
The fact that they're pretty flat. Like, I think my take from his Voyager episodes is that they tend to be very boring in how they were shot. You know,
Safe.
Very safe, nothing crazy. And I'm looking through his like Enterprise episodes, and it's like the cloud, emanations, learning curve, non sequitur, maneuvers, deadlock. Deadlock, that's the first one with any kind of creativity, but it's really
With
just
some jazz.
it's just shot reverse shots so that you can do people doing, acting against themselves.
28 episodes.
Yeah.
That's the Voyager kid there.
Oh, okay. There's one here that he did something interesting. Night had probably the best camera move in Voyager, because it was the tracking shot from the conference room all the way to the captain's chair on Chakotay.
Yeah,
it was like the only time they ever did a shot like that, and I still fucking remember it.
That's a great one, and that really showed the weight of like how bad the situation had gotten.
That was why it's an amazing shot. It was like, no dialogue, just him, slowly walking from the conference room and sitting down, and you could see it on his face, and it's like, wow, why don't you do this more often?
Yeah,
that was great.
Just talking about it's made me miss Chakotay. What a great shot. All right, man.
All right. Thanks to everybody for listening to Future Please. We are, as noted, a heinous trip for Warp 5. We call the balls and strikes here as we review Enterprise. If you'd like to see more or listen to more good news, there's a whole bunch of episodes we did about Voyager, literally every gosh darn episode, and all kinds of little, almost. And all kinds of little like season reviews and special episodes therein. Check us out. You can also reach us at futureplease@gmail.com, at futureplease on Twitter, but our preferred method is if you join our Future Please Trauma Support Group on Facebook. We're always happy to have more fans along on the ride to experience the dankest of memes and the goodest of times, and we will see you next week.